video has drawn international condemnation from the United Nations and the European Union. A spokesperson for the EU Commission pledged to hold all those responsible for war crimes in Ukraine to account.
Have more information on the veracity of the video. Having said that, if confirmed, this is yet another brutal reminder about the inhumane nature of the Russian aggression. Killing of prisoners of war is a very serious breach of the Geneva Convention and demonstrates once more Russia's complete disregard of international law, and particular international humanitarian law. Russia must abide by its obligation under international humanitarian law and ensure that prisoners of war are treated humanly and in all circumstances in accordance with the Geneva Conventions, and that their lives are not endangered. And again, I would reiterate, or the EU reiterates, its firm commitment to holding to account all perpetrators and accomplices of war crimes committed in connection with Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine.
Well, for more on this, let's cross live to our London studios and speak with Arise special correspondent Karl Bostic. Good to see you, Karl, and it is an absolutely horrific video, isn't it?
Charles, you don't even want to look at it. I think the reports of it are just so disturbing, distressing enough. And despite not only the response that you're hearing from international capitals and such, it's really what everyone's talking about on the streets of Kiev and the rest of Ukraine. Again, Charles, only days earlier, you also had a similar video posted by the Wagner mercenary group. That's the mercenary group that's really spearheading a lot of the Russian fighting in eastern Ukraine, where they showed, once again, decapitated corpses of Russian soldiers. But Charles, again, keep in mind, this is not anything isolated, because you can go back to the first month of the war. That's now in its 13th or 14th month, when you have those grisly, horrific images back in Bucha, where the streets were littered with civilians who were shot and killed, their hands tied behind their back. But to give you just to follow up more on what President Zelensky was saying, he was also saying that it's just simply absurd for Russia to actually still be a member of the UN Security Council, and because they have a rotating presidency, Russia is now the president of the Security Council. He says, this is absurd, they should be kicked off the Security Council. And there's also a further call by the Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Kuleba, saying that they should not even be allowed to participate in the Summer Olympics next year in 2024 in Paris. So there's this mounting outrage that simply, gathering steam, and even Russia is saying that, well, we have to authenticate this.
Well, yes, I wanted to get your assessment because the Kremlin has responded, as you mentioned there. They called the footage horrific, but the spokesman Dmitry Peskov appearing to question its authenticity and saying that it needs to be checked. What's your assessment of their response?
Well, again, the very fact that they've responded is one indication right there about how seriously they take it. No one even knows where this took place or when it took place by looking at those images, Charles. You saw the green foliage, you saw plants on the ground. The best guess, and it's only speculation, Charles, that this may have happened sometime summer of last year, in the summer. And the video that I mentioned a few days ago that was posted by the Wagner mercenary group, that was allegedly happening near Bakhmut, where you have an offensive taking place. So that's an indication of just how serious they take it, because, quite frankly, two more things, Charles. They're denying that they've even committed war crimes. Already, the last count was like maybe 60,000, Charles. And as you may also recall, you now have Russia's Vladimir Putin, the president, and one of his top officials already being indicted as war criminals for the deportation of children. So this is simply just adds to just the mounting outrage at what the tally and cost of this war is causing.
And when a video like this emerges, Karl, I mean, how difficult is it to verify? How do they go about doing that? I mean, I'm wondering whether it's really difficult to fake something like a beheading.
Well, you're absolutely right, Charles, and that's why I think, that's the fog of war. That's the smoke screen. It's very, very difficult. But you hear off camera, you hear soldiers speaking Russian. They're talking about, why don't you hurry up? This happened in the previous video, saying, haven't you done this before? You have the person, who's wearing Ukrainian badges for the military, pleading in Ukrainian and Russian, please, this hurts. Please don't do this. So you have really that kind of circumstantial type evidence. But then this was posted on the Russian Telegram channel, the channel that's used by the mercenary force Wagner and other Russian soldiers. So that's a start right there about, what is the provenance of these kinds of videos that are posted on a Russian Telegram channel.
And Karl, as we continue to see how brutal this war is, I wonder whether you can bring us up to date with what's happening on the front line in Ukraine. What are you hearing so far?
Well, very simply, Charles, is this. This was supposed to have been a so-called special military operation, as you recall, back in February 2023. Well, we're now in the 14th month, and now the total of casualties is mounting. You've got these leaked documents, coming out of Washington from the Pentagon, leaked. No one still knows exactly how that happened, but what they're showing is a grim assessment of the so-called spring offensive that Ukraine is boasting that it can carry out. It's a make or break moment for Ukraine now, Charles, for political and military reasons. The spring is now arriving. The ground is now hardened, but they need weapon systems. Both sides are running out of men, they're running out of ammunition, especially the Ukrainians. To give a quick example, Charles, a platoon fighting in Bakhmut, they were firing more than 30 rounds of artillery shells a day. Now it's 2 or 3 because they don't have enough ammunition. The promise of a spring offensive, it cannot happen without heavy equipment that's been promised by the West, especially those Abrams tanks from the U.S., Charles. Well, you know something? Those tanks are still maybe months away from arriving. So right now, the assessment is that, this may, at the very least, only be incremental gains by the Ukraine military against Russia. If the ultimate goal is to retake all that territory, Russia now controlling 15%, some are very, very skeptical. And the reason why that's a political implication, you've got Western capitalists saying, why should we pour all of these billions of aid and military aid to a situation that's a stalemate? Why don't we begin rethinking about looking for a negotiated settlement?
Thank you, Karl, as always, for your analysis there, bringing us up to date. Karl Bostic, Arise special correspondent, talking to me there from our studios in London.